Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Here we go.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Ipswich and the Daily Nottingham Forest, as it is a crossover today. Not on the usual Thursday, on a Friday this week. We swapped the days around, but we're looking ahead to the clash at Portman Road on Saturday afternoon between Ipswich Town and Nottingham Forest. I'm in the blue corner, Rob Binns, for those of you from the Nottingham Forest podcast who don't know me. I'm in the blue corner, and in the red corner, we have got Mark Jarvis. How you doing, mate?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. It's nice to be here. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm at the point now where I'm not putting pressure on any games now. It's just I'm going to enjoy it. I think I've sort of accepted fate at this point. I think I'm just going to try and enjoy these last 10 games while I can, and then with any luck, we'll get another season of it to enjoy next year. But I'm not going to figure them all up every week.
I think you're in quite a good position, even if you do get relegated. Because I quite like it this season, and I've been watching a lot of you guys this season. I was saying I'd actually quite like to sign your front four. Not that we can afford it, because they'll be like 50 million each. But then that's my point. If they're gonna go in summer, you're gonna make so much money on top of, because you spent wisely. You spent money, but you spent wisely, because Clark eventually, when he hits some form, will bring back a profit. Philogene will definitely bring back a profit. Hutchinson's going to be worth probably nearly the same as Delap in summer, because everyone will want him. So in that front four, you're probably going to get 200 million back, or 150 million, around that mark, depending on contracts and who's got what. Because most of them are new signings. Most of them will be on long contracts. And most of them probably expect Ipswich to be doing better than they are. So I think profit-wise, you'll look all right, and you'll also have the parachute payment. So you'll be loaded in summer. So, you'll bounce back, I would imagine. But yeah, I think, you've got a good front four. I think it's just the defence, mate. That's where it's falling apart.
Yeah, probably that's probably been one of the main areas, and that's the fact we can't score goals. There's a lot of problems going on, but we'll park them for now. We'll get on to the Ipswich side of things later on. We're obviously going to talk about the game itself as well, as we always do. And of course, obviously, both of our podcasts are brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only place to get daily content from every Premier League team, Premier League wrap-ups in multiple languages, and your women's football roundup as well. But for part one of today's show, we're going to focus on Forest. You're the away side this weekend, heading to Portman Road for the first time in a few years, since it was a championship fixture. It's a fixture I know well, because one of my best mates is a Forest fan, so it's always a date to look out for in the calendar when we were with each other in the championship. And it was fairly even games back then, but the games themselves have been even this time around this year, but on position in the table, we couldn't be much further apart. It's third bottom against third. So I'll put it into words for some of our listeners, so maybe we could pretend that if we scrape up this year like you've done a couple of years ago, maybe we'll be there in a few years. But how has this season been as a Forest fan? You're third in the table.
Yeah, it's been mad. I think we're starting to kind of believe it now. We were saying at the start of the season, I thought we'd be about 14th, 15th prediction wise. I was like, we'll improve on last season. We'll probably go up a place or two, maybe 14th. But I also feel like there's something about me that feels like we're going to have a fluke season. We've got some decent players, and if they gel this year, we might fluke it and get into the Conference League. That was my prediction at the start of the season. And everyone laughed and went, imagine it'd be amazing, wouldn't it? And now we're all going, oh, all right. Yeah, sound. Champions League would be great. I think we'd struggle in the Prem next season if we got Champions League. I think we look tired now. It looks like we're about to run out of steam, if I'm honest. Still playing well. Obviously beat City. But we're kind of it's in and out. Because I think I'm glad we've had a week off, because we had quite a few weeks where we had FA Cup midweek, Saturday game, midweek game on a Tuesday, Friday game. Do you know what I mean? And you could tell it was really starting to get to the players. But having a full week off has probably done them good this week, I think. Difficult game though. Ipswich away is hard, and I think you were saying earlier about the one team that we've struggled against this season is Ipswich in the cup and in the league as well. And I think it's because you set up quite similar to us. And I think the difference between you and us this season has been the defence. We've probably had one of the best defences in the league. You've got probably one of the worst. But attacking wise, if you look at our front four, Hudson-Odoi, Elanga, Gibbs, White and Wood, is terrifyingly dangerous. Most teams would have those players and maybe in their squad on the bench, like the top 6. But the rest of the Premier League will definitely utilise those players because they're good players. But your front 4, Hutchinson, Philogene, Delap. Is Hutchinson central now because of Smodjic getting injured?
He's been central most of the year, but now Enciso's fit again. I wonder if he might be stuck out wide this weekend because Enciso was brilliant against Palace.
Enciso as well. This is what I mean. Like, Smodjic's got injured and they were like, we need someone else, and brought in Enciso. Like, your front 4 is well dangerous. And I think the issue is we're quite a counter-attack team. We play like very much built on defence and then break, and we've got good players. But I don't think your defence is strong enough to do that, and that's why you're getting punished. And I think if you look at it, particularly with our 2 games, obviously they've both been at the City ground, so it might be different on Saturday. But the 2 differences between those 2 games has just been, and across the season, our defence is better. We play the same game, but defensively you're not strong enough to do it, so you get punished every week. And that's as harsh as the Premier League is. And I think we're starting to see how big of a gap there is now between the Championship and the Premier League. I mean, you're on 17 points. I know Wolves are close. They're on about 25. But if you look beyond that, I think Everton and Man United are like the next 2 teams, and they're on like 33 points. They're miles away. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, look at the league. There's 6 points between us and Wolves, but then Wolves from 17th to 16th, which is West Ham, is 10 points. So the gap between the bottom 3 and sort of that next chunk of like 14th to 16th, which in years gone by would be the teams by this point of the season sort of nervously looking over their shoulder, hoping nobody goes on a run to bring them back in it. They're 15 to 20 points clear, that little bracket.
Yeah.
And literally Wolves is the little halfway point between the 2 almost, who maybe could slip in, but then they've got Cunha, who's one of the best forwards in the league, so as long as he stays, once his suspension's over, he'll probably go and win them 3 games on his own, and that'll be enough. That's the problem we've got there. But
I think my worry for most of you lot is that you look at the teams who are above you. You've got Tottenham, Man United, West Ham, who are 3 essentially massive teams, should all be in Europe, right? And they're the 3 teams that you're chasing, along with Everton, who again, really should be up in the top half somewhere, especially with a new stadium next year. Moyes back in the helm as manager's done well. And essentially, like, you're in a relegation battle with those 4. If someone said to you when you got promoted, by the way, you're going up, but you're going to be in a relegation battle with West Ham, Man United, and Tottenham, you'd have gone, oh, what? Like, and they're 3 teams that have not been great this season, but you also don't want to be in a battle with them because you know that they've got that next gear. And it's only going to take, if Man United, Tottenham, and West Ham win at the weekend and maybe win the game after, I worry for your season, because if you're maybe like another 15, 20 points behind, your team is going to go, we can't catch that. And it's going to be season over with 10 games to go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, so I've already accepted that part. Wolves is the only one we've got half a chance of getting past. Everybody else will finish above us now. And like you said, it's always been that point. I've always thought, like, early in the year, Palace are right down there as well. But like, I always discount. There was a spell of time where Palace were in the bottom 3 and we were out of it for a couple of weeks. And I said, and I came on the podcast as positive as I always am when we're in the bottom 3. Like, I know, yes, we're 17th, but Palace won't stay here. Palace are too good to be here. They'll kick into gear at some point. And lo and behold, they have now, and they're one of the most informed teams in the league. But speaking of other sort of informed teams, sorry.
I swear they get to like 20 games in and they've got like 14 points. Somehow they finish every season at like 45. I'm like, where did that come from? Like, it just blows my mind every year. But yeah, I think it'll be an interesting game on Saturday to kind of round up the waffle that I've said. I think it'll be quite an attacking game. I think it'll be quite an exciting game to watch. And I think it'll be quite open as well, because Forest have got to keep up the points to stay where they are. But you guys will be fighting with everything you've got, and I think Kieran McKenna's probably just going to look at the Forest game as one that is potentially winnable, and he's just going to say to his lads, go and get it, because we've got to get the 3 points. And I think because of that, it will open the game up, and I think it could be really exciting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to go and shock somebody ultimately, and that's what this game would fall in that category of. I mean, we sat and digested fixtures the other day, and we thought all of our last 3 are winnable. Wolves at home is winnable, but you probably need more than 4 wins to stay up. So then you've got to go, and this week you've got Bournemouth away. Next week we've still got Arsenal, Chelsea, teams like that to play. You've got to go and shock somebody, and something's got to change. But it's quite a bad time to
we
be
did that.
playing you, really.
Well, yeah,
So you've had a long. Sorry, you go.
No, go on. Yeah, no, it's not a bad time to be playing us. To be fair, we've got a decent run, but we're a bit inconsistent at the minute. And I think Portman Road's going to be a difficult place for us to go. I think it's definitely, in terms of us getting Champions League, I think this is a banana skin majorly. I think this is the one that we've got to watch.
I hope so.
Yeah. Because the thing is, I think we're still kind of underdogging against the top teams like Man United, Man City, Arsenal. So we know we're up against it. So we're playing out of our skins against them. But we've struggled against teams that are kind of mid-table. And Portman Road's a difficult ground to go to as well. One of my mates does the presenting for Ipswich Town TV, and I know a lot about the club, and it's a good ground.
Yeah, it's interesting. We'll get onto our home form later in the show when we move on to the Ipswich side of things, but it's not very good for everyone. Sort of gives it a tough game to go, but we have had a lot of our points when you say the underdog aspect. So Wolves, I keep saying this every week, but Wolves away is like the one big game we've gone and got the win we should have got. Most of our wins and draws and that have come when we're under the radar. Our only home win is Chelsea. And then we've got you talk about the idea of getting up for the big
games as well.
Yeah, so up for the big games and not for the other ones. To that point, I think how good a Villa we've drawn against them twice. Fulham have got some big results, including beating you the other week, and some other big ones like that you probably wouldn't expect them to get. And we've got 2 points off them as well. The 2 games we played them, we seem to be in that category of we can just sort of sneak results against these teams that don't do that. And I mean, even 2 weeks ago, we met each other in the cup. I mean, yes, both teams made 6 or 7 changes, but I think so. I mean, our squad was 6 of our stars or something was our League One team from a couple of years ago. But even then, that went to penalties, didn't it? 120 minutes. You only managed to put one past us, a team who struggles defensively. These sort of games that we tend to shock people. And like I said, we were quite hopeful for that cup game going into it, because we looked at your fixtures around.
Yeah, I honestly wasn't sure. I genuinely wasn't sure, and I think you took the lead, didn't you, originally?
Yeah,
and then we equalised. Yeah,
yeah.
I think when you scored, I genuinely thought, do you know what? That's it. That's it. Over. We're focusing on the Prem. I don't know. I had a funny feeling about it. I've got quite a positive feeling about Portman Road, but I don't know if it's just because I think it's going to be a good game or if I think it's going to be a good result. But I think it'll be great to watch. Talking of Ipswich, though, for you guys, let's say we've got a Forest, quite a good attacking team in terms of transitional. Where's the breakdown for you? Is it your cams like Sam Morsey, Kajust, Phillips? Because I know quite a lot about Morsey. My dad's a Barnsley fan, so I've watched him quite a lot, and he's tenacious. He's a bit naughty, but he's tenacious, and the kind of player that you want in that midfield. But is Phillips living up to his expectation? Is this Kajus guy as good as he's meant to be coming in from other leagues, or is it just that the back four is essentially Championship standard and they just can't keep up?
It's a mixture of things, really. And you know what? I'm going to do that horrible podcast trait, and I'm going to throw to a break, and I'm going to answer your question when we come back. We've been going for a while now, and we've got to get our sponsorships in.
Your body is Bioniq, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
There we go. We are back for the second part of today's crossover episode with the Daily Ipswich and the Daily Nottingham Forest. We've covered Forest in part 1, and I rudely cut off your question to throw to an ad break, as we're going to focus on the Ipswich side of things now. So, to answer your question about sort of where it breaks down, that it is the midfield for me, because we got some good players in there, but Kajust is the only one ball carrying midfielder we've got to link the team between the defence and those four up the top end of the pitch. If you don't have him, you have somebody else has to try and One of the wingers has to come all the way back, and that's the problem because he's the only one we've got. We some reason didn't go and address that in January, and because he works his socks off. He puts in a good shift pretty much every week. He gets tired and he comes off 70, 75 minutes, and that's why we finish games badly because he comes off and nobody else fills that role. And then that's like
Got you.
we struggle as a team. We're supposed to try and sit in and hit on the break with pace, which is the way we try and play a lot of the time. When he comes off the pitch, we look like we don't know how to do it, and that's the issue for me. The midfield gets overrun more weeks than it doesn't. I mean, I look at games like Tottenham where we didn't play badly at all. We lost 4-1 at home, and we were just the midfield was near enough non-existent for the majority of the game. That Spurs would just pick the ball up, be able to bring it forward, and then suddenly spread it out wide and have got a chance. Whereas these sort of battles that Morsey and Phillips they're so similar that I really don't like when they play together because there's no variety in there. And so they've both been very up and down. I mean, Morsey started the season fantastically, then sort of started to feel it a bit, and we're hoping to sort of turn back the other way now because he played the whole 120 minutes against you in the Cup, and that's the best game he's had in a long time. And then he's had a full rest against Palace because he's getting on a bit now and just played 120 minutes on the Monday night before the Saturday. That I'm hoping with that rest and that confidence in that game that he can kick on a bit now. And then Phillips as well has had a lot of good shifts recently. Before he got his latest knock that he's had loads of, he started to sort of turn a corner and be a bit more consistent because he's been very up and down. I always go back to one from September, October time where he had probably what I'd still say is arguably his best game for the club this season. Against Villa, we drew 2-2 at Portman Road. And then he had his worst game for the club the week later and we lost 4-1 at West Ham. And that pretty much sums him up, really. There's been no consistency, but until the recent knock, he started to turn that around. Then he came back against Palace and wasn't bad again. They're both, I'm hoping, finding a little bit of form, but so it's my issues when they play together. They're just far too similar and we get overrun. That's the long-winded answer to your question.
Is there not somebody else who can step? Because I feel like one of the issues is, when Hutchinson plays centrally, he kind of is like your Morgan Gibbs White player. But I don't know if you have anyone who plays that kind of floating creator. So if you look at Jack Clark maybe could be an option to do it as well if you're going to put Hutch out wide. But with that in Ciso, with Schmodix, even if you look at the likes of the wingers, they are all either like sevens or kind of nines just dropping off the lap. They're not really that deeper kind of play. You haven't got that person who's like your creator in midfield. You need kind of I'm trying to think of like an Andrea Pirlo kind of character, or Ollie Norwood used to be great at it for Sheffield United. I would just sit in the middle, turn, just find the pass and just ping it out. And I feel like you've got two engines, two tanks who will tackle, and then there's a gap, and then there's 3 wing wizards. But it doesn't create a cohesive 5. And then, the 3 are quite flat. You need runners to go in behind with the lap as well. Look at me. I mean, Kieran McKenna knows a lot more than I do, obviously, but I think it's a lot harder said than done. But it seems like, there must be a fix. I mean, I don't know if you've got any good backup left backs, but I'd try Leif Davis out in midfield because, creatively, he's brilliant.
Yeah, to be fair, Connor Townsend has come in for a few games recently. Davis has had some illness problems and some little knocks here and there, and he's somebody who we didn't really sort of question the signing of because we thought, well, obviously he's coming as a backup, but he's in his early 30s. He's come up from the Championship. What role has he got to play? And then the last few weeks, he's sort of come in and he's played really well every time. I mean, the Cup game, again, to go back to that considering he was up against Hudson, I think it was Hudson-Odoi on the right, or Elanga, either or, but he done so well considering what a threat they are. I mean, I'll mention that again later probably, but we tend to deal with your wide players fairly well. But I thought he was fantastic in that Cup game. He's had a few games where he's been forced to come in and he just doesn't have that same threat. He plays well, but he's never going to displace Davis because he doesn't offer that same threat going forward. And I suppose you never considered the idea of pumping Davis forward and playing both of them, but you never know, it might work. But
yeah, But imagine if you had Kajust and then Davis next to him. Now, that would be pretty naughty, to be fair, holding midfield.
Yeah. To be fair, we said yesterday that on our preview episode that we're sort of at the point now where we might as well try something. I think we were saying like playing Hurst and Delap together and just risking that when one of them then has to go off that you've got no strikers on the bench because that's all we've got. But we're at that point now where we've got nothing to lose in a way, but everything to lose in another way because the gap's 6 points at the moment. So you sort of like, well, we've got to make something happen because it's in Wolves' hands. So maybe we try something, it might work brilliantly. But then
if you did beat us and Wolves lost, you're fine.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say. That it's sort of worth a go for that reason. But then the opposite way is if you try something and it blows up in your face, then the gap gets to 9 points, then we won't overturn that.
Yeah,
so
but if you lose,
nothing and everything to lose.
Points. Yeah, well, if you lose and it goes to 9 points and you didn't try something, you're like, well, you know, we didn't even give it a go. Whereas if you throw everything on the, I always think I live my life in the way of like sensibly, but like if you leave everything out there, if you leave it all in the room, if it doesn't go your way, I mean, it's easier for me to say because I'm an actor, but if you leave everything like on the line, if it doesn't happen for you, in whatever scenario it is, you couldn't have done anything more. So I'm like, cool, I've got no regrets. Whereas if you lose and it's 9 points and you're like, well, we could have tried something, it's that you're not going to look back on it. We'll see. I reckon we should play the second advert and then do lineups. What do you think?
Yeah, good idea. We're getting good at this podcast stuff, and we look at this going through nearly a whole season, emerging together and everything. But as Mark said, we're going to have a quick break now from one of the sponsors, and then we'll be looking into the game itself and the team news after this. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
Boom.
And we are back for the final part of today's show, and we're going to lineups first straight away. We're going to cover Forest first because at time of recording, Nuno has done his press conference and Kieran McKenna hasn't. So we've got a lot more openness for what we know about Forest. And one of the other big things with you guys this year being able to keep your success is that injuries have been kept to a minimum. It's something people keep saying about Liverpool as well, why they're flying so high compared to Arsenal. But you've not had sort of extended spells of absence of out players. And Nuno said today that apart from your backup goalkeeper, Miguel, you've got a fully fit squad to choose from. So that's a fantastic position to be in later on. But I think we also know he's a manager. He doesn't like to make changes. So what do you expect from a lineup?
Well, I think it's a massive positive from Forest this season because I think they've probably seen online from reading some of the fans' comments. We've been so frustrated over the last few years. We've had kind of 5 or 6 years in a row in the Championship. We'd be like second at Christmas, like consistently every year. And we'd always finish like 6th or 7th. We'd either just get into the playoffs and then mess it up or we'd miss out. And like there was one season where, I don't know if you remember, it was probably 4 or 5 years ago. It was like the Britta Sombalonga era. Right, we had a Sombalonga, Jack Hobbs, Chris Cohen, Andy Reid, somebody out, another centre off was Kelvin Wilson. But there was like 5 or 6 of our starting Championship lineup, all like it was, and different players each year. But there'd be 4 or 5 of the starting 11 and 2 or 3 of the bench out for like 4 months, and it would happen every year. And we were like, why? And the season would just do that every year. And I think that's something that Nuno's addressed when he's coming. I think he's done really well fitness-wise, injury-wise. He just seems to have his head really screwed on, really like level-headed. And, you know, the difference with Forest and Wolves compared to, you know, Tottenham and teams in Saudi Arabia is that they've gone, right, you've got some time, show us what you can do, build something. And if it's terrible, you're fired. But he's had that time, like he did at Wolves, to build a brand, build a product, and people are buying into it. And I think it makes a massive difference. And, you know, whatever they're doing on the training ground, whatever they've changed is working because people aren't getting injured. But having said that, we have been lucky. There was a few weeks where Anderson got a knock, Gibbs White got a knock, and it was like watching a whole different team. It is crazy how important those players are. Mental. Like, Without Gibbs White, I think Gibbs White and Anderson were both missing for the Arsenal away game, and we got 3-0. And when we got hammered, mate, like hammered. Like it was only 3-0, but I think we had one shot. Like, do you know what I mean? It was the difference was outrageous. But I think he'll probably stick with the Man City lineup. I reckon. He might give Yatesy a chance because he scored against you in the cup, and we need someone who's a bit gutsy to go up against Morsey in midfield. But I think it'll probably be Sells in goal, same back four, Aina, Milenkovic, Murillo, and Williams at the back, big Nico. Then Dominguez and Anderson as the kind of like holding pivots, similar formation to you guys. And then Alanga, Gibbs White, Hudson-Odoi and Wood would be the four. I would imagine he'll stick with that. But I think the other thing this season, why Forest has been so successful, you saw it in the Fergie era. You saw it, back in when Mourinho was in charge. And Guardiola's just like a whole like special miracle in himself. He's an anomaly. But generally, teams that are consistent with their lineup, like Palace, consistency every single week, and you see how much of a difference it makes because they get that cohesion. But I reckon that's how we'll probably line up. My big question for you is who's right back? Because I still can't figure out who actually is good at right back for you.
Well, so if he's fit again, it's Twanzebe, but we are a club that gives nothing away, even to our own supporters when it comes to injuries. I've given up on trying to find out now where Twanzebe, he came off at half time in that cup game and he was rested. He missed Palace completely, but so for all I know, he could be out for the season. It's the same chance he's back this week. They give nothing away. Sometimes players' names just appear, like even the weekend just gone. Against Palace, there was no rumour about Enciso being back until like late Friday night, and he's in the starting lineup on Saturday. It wasn't mentioned in a press conference or anything. It's just the way we do things. So I'm hoping he's back fit, but I've got no idea on his time frame. But we stuck O'Shea there against Palace and actually kind of worked. But this is the thing.
Interesting.
Go back to your point about cohesion and keeping consistent squads when you're allowed to. We make so many changes. Like we will consistently make 2 or 3 changes every week. Like there'll be minimum. We were saying yesterday. We were trying to work out, have we named the same back 4/back 5 for 2 games in a row all season? And it's something we always like. Sometimes obviously it's enforced, but sometimes it feels like we just make changes for the sake of making changes. Like we'll change one centre back in a back 5. When like, do you really need to do that? And that's where I think part of the reason we go wrong is, especially defensively, is that we haven't nailed down that consistent back 4 that can build the relationships and get together. And that's actually why I think the cup game went well. Because it was 3 out of 4 of our League One back 4 who have played together for 2 years. And we looked fairly solid for the majority of the game. And I think that's probably the lesson from that. Why? But so I'd like to think we go with the same back 4 against Palace because it worked quite well. Like, goal was very well taken, but ultimately it was a ricochet which could have gone anywhere. And it happened to fall to Sarr's feet, and he done the rest. That we were unlucky, really. Palace, bar a couple of saves from Palmer, didn't create too much. So I'd like to think we go the same again, but it wouldn't be very Ipswich this season to name an unchanged back 4. But I think it probably will be the same 2 in midfield again. Maybe Morsey for Phillips, because Phillips has just come back. I don't know how fit he is, and obviously we know what he's like for the last 3 years, that he will play 2 games of football and then get injured for a month, and then he'll come back and play 2 games of football and get injured for another month. That he's on that cycle, so they might want to rest him. And obviously Morsey played fantastic in that cup game. I think the front 4 will be unchanged because, again, we didn't score, but we were making chances, which was the first part of the problem solved. The only question would be Hutchinson back in for one of Clark and Philogene for me, unless Enciso's tweaked something and would have to drop to the bench to make sure. But I want to keep it.
Is Enciso better than the other 2?
I don't know if he necessarily is better completely, but he was the sharpest player on the pitch against Palace for us. He was at the heart of everything. Like, he was pressing with a bit of intensity that we haven't had in a lot of games. He's not afraid to shoot, which is the key thing for us. Like, we had 15 shots against Palace. That's one of our highest in the season. And I think he had about 4 of them. And he didn't even play the whole game. That he's not scared to just have a pop when he gets the ball. Like, there's one, he snatched the ball back himself sat down Gay and just shot from like the angle was rubbish, but he had no one in the box. We just had a go. Whereas I think most of our squad, lacking in confidence, would have been in that position and gone, "Oh, all right, nobody in the box. I'll turn and pass backwards, and we'll see if we can recycle it." Whereas he just had a go and won a corner. Then that's what he just doesn't have much fear about him. So I'd like to see him start again. But I want to see at least 9. Ideally, the whole 11 if we can, but because it wasn't a bad performance despite the loss. But you've got to have 9, 10 players from that Palace game for me. If you want a realistic chance here, you got to be lining up the same because it did work well. Like I say, that another day that ball ricochets 2 yards further away and lands on Wolfenden's boot and he hooks it away, but it just happened to land on Sarr's boot and he's a good enough player to turn, produce a burst of pace and a good finish. That it's on that element.
It was an outrageous goal, though, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I mean that he's one of the few players like him, Eze, Delap maybe on our side, the sort of players that if the ball fell to in that place, you could see the same result. That even Palace, they're a good team, Palace, but like I think of like Kamada who was on the pitch at the time and Ketty. I don't think they do that if it broke the same way. It's just that element of it was unlucky, but. Like, overall, Palace, we play well, so I'd like to see a similar 11, but it's been the Ipswich thing this year to make 3 or 4 changes week on week and then wonder why it's not clicking together and people aren't communicating properly. But I'm hoping we stop that trend now because I say most of our injuries now, they're either out for the season, so we know they're not coming back, or they're back soon. So we're sort of getting to the point of close enough to a fully fit squad that we shouldn't have to rotate all the time. But
yeah, and Greaves is back as well. Big player to help back.
Yeah, so it's just so hard to know of our lineups week on week that they just come out of the blue. Like I also say, Davis had his knocks normally like nailed on starter, but he's had knocks recently. We haven't known. We've just seen the team come out and he's on the bench, or he's not in the squad, or he's not in the squad completely. Then it's just like panic. Like, oh no, how bad is it? What's happened? Is it a 1 week, or is he out for the season? That the club never give us anything. So trying to predict lineups on a Friday podcast are an absolute nightmare. But something I want to talk to you about quickly before we wrap up today's show is something we spoke in depth about this week on our pod. We're trying to pick apart the reasons why Forest seem to maybe not struggle, we have beat us both times, but look uncomfortable against Ipswich, whereas there have been a lot of teams who find us fairly easy to play against. But where I think it comes down to is we know how good your wingers are, and our makeshift fullback. Both games we played here, we've had one of the starting fullbacks out, and the other one playing, and yet we kept the wingers fairly quiet. I mean, Alanga, credit to him, was very good in that cup game, but Hudson-Odoi was quiet, and both of them were quiet in the league game. I think it was Jota Silva who ended up winning the penalty, and he actually caused more of a threat when he came off the bench than the starting two. But from a Forest point of view, that's a point I've been making all week. Is that one you'd sort of agree with? Maybe is that part of the reason why? Or why do you think you might struggle a bit more against us than perhaps you should?
Yeah, I think it is a reason for sure. But I think the thing, like I was saying earlier in the podcast, I think for me it comes down to the fact that we've been very good at being the underdog for 2 or 3 years, and we've played the underdog very well and realised that actually we are good enough to compete with the teams at the top of the season and have deserved a lot of the victories we've got. We've got lucky in a few, but we've deserved a lot of them, and I think we've realised that we can compete up there. But I think Ipswich play quite similar to us in the sense, like I was saying earlier, that you are quite a counter-attacking team. I mean, some of your counter-attacks have been unbelievable that you haven't scored, and I've been, how have you missed that? I mean, that's another thing in the Premier League, you've got to take chances. But I think that's where Forest struggle. Forest struggle against low blocks because we're a counter-attacking team, and we find it hard to break teams down. And I think it then comes down to a shootout. Who scores first wins, basically. And that to me is what is probably more of an issue. But I think if you keep the wingers quiet, we do play a lot through that front three behind Wood. So if you keep them quiet, it's difficult to think between the lines. So yeah, you might be right.
Yeah, I think that might be a part of the reason, but I never know. I'm hoping that we can sort of frustrate you again, and maybe this time we'll tip it the other way. But to wrap up, then score predictions. We've got to do them again. I'll give you the honours first, as you should be the more confident one out of the two of us. And if you watched, if anyone listened to our preview yesterday, I'm not very confident.
I think it'll be a good game. I think I'd love it Well, I mean, I'd love to get the 3 points, obviously, but I'd also be more than happy to watch a 3-3 on Match of the Day. That would be great if it was end to end, like goals flying in. That would be great to watch. It'd be a nightmare as a fan watching the goals go in, but it'd be a great game to watch. But I think we'll probably edge it. I think it just depends on who takes the chances better. I think probably 2-1 Forest because I think you'll score. But
Yeah,
I think a draw is possible, but I think we might edge it.
I think I'm going to take it back to a point you made way back in part 1, that we're fairly similar, but our defence can't live up to the way we try and play. And I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to take your most recent game against City as an example. Stayed in the game, nicked it 1-0. We don't have that game in our locker. I've said that all year. Like, I'll compare us to the likes of Wolves and teams like that, and other teams when they were down there at the time, is that you can see them going and grinding out a shock result, either home or away, just defending for their lives, nabbing a goal. Like I did it when we went to the Emirates. We played Everton, went there the week before, defended fantastically, got a 0-0 draw. We went and done the exact same, tried to play the exact same foray, and we just let a poor one in. And that's my problem. I think that you're very good at those sort of hold firm 1-0s, where you don't have to play at 100%, and we're not. So for that reason, the prediction I went for yesterday was Forest to nick it 1-0 in an even game. And I think, again, I say we have to shock people, but for me, this is a game where I can't see it happening. I can see it more likely when we've got Stamford Bridge in a couple of weeks. That's more the sort of one I think we might nab that surprise win late in the season. But it's a cliche for this time of the year, isn't it? In the run-in, you want to play teams who have got nothing to play for. You don't want to play teams who are chasing something, especially those down the bottom, scrapping for their lives. So I'm hoping we give that cliche its reason, and then we start picking up some results now and find it hard for people. But I don't think we will this game. I just think Forest are a bit too strong at the moment. So unfortunately, I can't bring the positivity on this side of things. I always like to try and predict a draw at least on these crossover ones, but I can't do it this week.
Got to stay positive. I think we'll get the 3 points, but like I said, it could be a banana skin, so it could go either way.
Yeah, I hope so. I said for me, it's just a home form as well. Like I said it earlier, we've got 1 win at home all year. Well, 2 in all competitions, and 1 was Bristol Rovers. And then you said the other one is Chelsea randomly. So I mean, that's where the hope is to me, that underdog games we play better than games of expectation. Like even Spurs, that we should be underdogs in that one. But they also felt like a bit of expectation because they've been off it this year, and that's why I think had Spurs been flying like they were last year at one point, and if they were in the top 4 and coming to that game and played the same way, I feel like that in a weird way, I feel like we'd have had more chance of getting a result. So maybe the underdog thing will come into play, and we can get another positive result at home that we are absolutely craving. But we'll see how it plays out, and
we'll see.
That'll wrap us up for today as well. The end of a very fun little crossover episode here. So on a Friday this week instead of a Thursday. Make sure you check out both podcasts. Obviously, any of you from the Daily Nottingham Forest, come and check us out at the Daily Ipswich. And any of our listeners, make sure you go and check out the Daily Nottingham Forest with Mark and the boys as well. That is it for today's episode. We will both be back on our respective podcasts next week, and we start with reviews of the game. And until then, we will see you later.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.